Welcome to another Swim Easy Speed video analysis. Today we're going to be looking at an athlete that came over from Austin for a just kind of a mini camp. He wanted to do some kind of one-on-one work and then swim with the team. So we put something together, and so we're going to go over his analysis today. So I'm going to let it play, and then we'll start talking about it. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is, obviously we always want to start off with kind of body position. And, you can see here he's pretty low in the water, but then, the angle on the water is down like that. You've got this foot coming way out of the water, which kind of presses everything down a little bit more here in the front. The one thing we did talk about with him is you can see on this left elbow, he's injured this left elbow twice, and there's some mobility issues with that we talked about that he's going to probably need to work on, and you'll be able to see it under the stroke as well. But the biggest thing was we were trying to get the core to engage a little bit more, because you can see part of that's the reason why he's so low in the water. And then on this entry on the right, it's partly to do with how he's pulling on the left, and because of that injured elbow. But then if you look, watch what happens, how the right kind of accelerates, and he just kind of flops the hand in there, and you get a lot of splash. And that's just because he's really kind of falling down in the water. He's losing a lot of speed at that point, so he just feels like he's got to rush to get that arm in the water. So one of the big things that we worked on was just trying to get that core to engage a lot more. And here you can see kind of the injury to the elbow. And, he's just going to have to, it's one of those things, you get injured. And I see it a lot of times with triathletes that have broken collarbones, that, you've got to be really, really diligent about trying to do the rehab just to keep as much mobility and flexibility as you can in that joint. Head position looks pretty good. He's looking down a little bit forward, so his chin's not tucked. But you can see kind of just the general angle. He is on the water right here. This is going to be the first thing that he's going to want to try to kind of work on to clean up. All right, so here's where, you can see some of what's going on. So you can see here, he's got that typical kind of momentum going that way. You'll see the feet come way apart in the back, right there. So there, kind of there and there. So we've got this big kind of gap in between the feet. And what we want is you'd want those feet to really never come apart. Now, some of this is, let's see if we can do it when he's breathing. He's breathing a little bit, probably rotating a little bit too much to the side to get the breath. You can see right there, where he's almost on his side to kind of get the breath. We want it to flatten out just a little bit. And then we can see on the left, he's entering pretty wide out here. So, this is basically what it looks like. And remember, what we want is we want everything just driving straight forward from the shoulder. And it's actually, realistically, it's driving straight forward from the hip. So then everything would just be driving straight forward like that in that lane, effectively. So the more compact we can get, the simpler that we can make the stroke, the more efficient we're going to be. Next, we'll go kind of in the front. We'll show you some of the angles of the shoulder on the water, just to give you a better idea of the rotation that's going on. All right, so you can see here, typically we like to see this angle of the shoulder off the plane of the water at somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees for distance swimmers. So you can see there with him, it's about 55. The thing that impacts that the most is it's what's going to change over here. So there's kind of the angle of that shoulder on the water. This becomes midline then right there, because you can see he's pretty much kind of starting to turn onto his side. So then we are way, way out here trying to lever the water when all the leverage is closer into that midline. So that's why we want to try to minimize that rotation a little bit. But we want the rotation, you want rotation, but you want the rotation to be driving forward, just not side to side, is the biggest thing. And then on the side that he breathes, similar kind of deal. Here's kind of the plane of the water. There's the angle of the shoulder. He's about the same on both sides, but we just got to bring it down just a little bit. Just kind of flatten it out, drive it more forward. And you can see where the right is that splash that's happening right there. You can see where the hand kind of comes inside and then he moves it out. But it's just that acceleration right here, where it looks like he just doesn't have a lot of core engagement, and how the arms look kind of floppy. That's typically, I see that with people that have worn kind of lava pants or cheater pants or neoprene pants or whatever you want to call them, because they allow you to swim without having to engage your core. And if you're not engaging your core, then that's going to present some pretty big issues in the stroke. So you can see here, here's a foot. We're way down here. If you figure midline is here, this hand is pretty far from midline. Typically you want this angle to be somewhere between 100, 110 degrees, or at 150. And then here's with what we talked about a lot with his elbow. You can see that he has to really kind of collapse the elbow and bring that way up really close to his body with, fingertips pointing out here. It'd be much better if we had kind of fingertips pointed down towards the bottom. And then, this angle right here is 75 degrees. You'd really want it to be more like kind of this. Somewhere in right about here maybe. Where he'd get a lot more leverage on the water, so we figure midline is right about there. So we're just kind of skirting midline. That's where the leverage on the water is going to be. That's where you're going to be able to generate a lot of power. And then you won't have kind of some of this stuff going on underneath the stroke, but a lot of that's core engagement, because there's a lot of things that he's doing well. So, okay. So same thing, we're looking on, here's that right, it's pretty straight arm through here. We're outside kind of the body frame, here's kind of midline. Whoops. We'll put midline right about there. So it's tough to get leverage out over here when your shoulder's that far outside your body frame. And we're just looking to get all of those big muscles in the back and the shoulders and your body to kind of engage. So one of the first things we did was we put on some short fins and the brick and went a bunch of rounds of this, and we're really just forcing as much core engagement as we can get. And the brick weighs 6 pounds. It's weighted. It has enough buoyancy on it to float, but if you put any weight on it, it's going to sink. So you've got to lift the whole thing up from your core. And then, we've got the short fins on. They're going to put a little bit more pressure on the core, force a little bit more engagement. And you're recruiting that, other muscle group of the kick. So we're just trying to drive that neuromuscular connection to the core, get it to engage. Typically, when you do that, you do the brick enough times, you take it away, and then you go and swim, and you feel so much higher on the water because your body just pops up on the water from the kick. And what we're hoping is you do this next drill right after it, the position 11 drill, and you've got your core a lot more engaged. Everything's more connected up and down the stroke. You've got a lot more precision and control of where your hands enter. That's what we're looking to do. So I'll put links to both of those drills that we did in the description section down below. And if anyone has any questions about any of this, just feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to talk about it. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you again for Kike for coming on over for the mini camp. And I hope to see you guys at the back in the pool soon.